Happy Monday, everyone. Aloha and welcome back. I'm Jay Goodman from Talking with the Goodman and BearSchoolOfManliness.com, where I've partnered with the great Bear Wozniak and Pat Gervais and Deep Adventure Ministries. And this is the Screwtape Lenten series, Letter 18. So the mission of Deep Adventure Ministries with Bear Wozniak, since its conception, and BearSchoolOfManliness.com is twofold. It's to encourage men to step away from society's perspective of what men are and to become the man that God built us to be. For more information, contact me at jgoodman.deepadventure@gmail.com. That's jaygoodman.deepadventure@gmail. If you'd like a link to sign up, let me know. I'll personally call you. I'll set up a time to call you and help you sign up and even give you a tour of the website. There's a lot of amazing content on it. It's just meant to build you up in the virtues in the Catholic life. There's even a section with some of Bear's favorite country music. I like country music. My son loves it, and he's always adding and tweaking it and making it better. And next year I'll be releasing, I think I've mentioned this a few times, but I'll be releasing a Catholic exercise and nutrition program based on the Catholic virtues, as well as, obviously physically and nutritionally to help you be really healthy in all aspects. So more to come about that as the year goes on, so stay tuned to this YouTube channel. So back to the show today. How was your weekend? This is the beginning of the 4th week of Lent. Only 2 more weeks until the end of Lent and Easter begins. My weekend was rough, to say the least. It seems to be building in my life as we near the end of Lent. Life seems to just be getting busier, more hectic, more stressful. I can't say I have not personally contributed to that stress. It was becoming so stressful personally, physically, and spiritually, and then I received an email from someone I'll call Jamie. She told me how much it changed her life and that was just, what she needed to remind her to keep going. So I'm humbled. I'm honored. Thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate it. I hope you're a real person too. I'm sure you are. Just kidding. So before we go on, I have to throw out a disclaimer. If you're a parent and your teen is listening to this, I'm going to talk about some things that you might want to listen to first and then decide if you want them to listen to it. Adult themes ahead, FYI. Okay, so today I get the feeling that Screwtape is starting to get a little angry and desperate. Not that he hasn't been angry already, but I'm sensing desperation. But again, are we surprised? They're demons. Today's theme is like Screwtape deciding to go for the jugular. For Marlin's study guide, it is aptly titled, Sex, a Gift from God. So the theme verse is from 1 Thessalonians 4:3-8, and it says soberingly, "For this is the will of God, your sanctification, that you abstain from immorality, that each one of you knows how to control his own body in holiness and honor, not in the passion of lust like heathens who do not know God. For God has not called us for uncleanness, but in holiness. Therefore whoever disregards this, disregards not man, but God, who gives his Holy Spirit to you." That is really sobering, and yeah, I've had my moments in my life. It ties in with letter 17, though, on Friday when Jim spoke on the theme self-mastery, if you remember that. I think this verse is the goal for all of us, really, controlling our own body. And it can mean so many different aspects of controlling yourself, those words. But today it is sexually, and Screwtape is trying to get Wormwood to really attack close to home for us. They hate God's views on sex and marriage and family and all that thing. It's interesting that sex, marriage, family, all those are grouped in together, and pleasure. But of course, Screwtape wants to distort sex and all the things that come with it. He thinks that sex should be for pure pleasure and not for love, that love should be an afterthought, as Marlin describes in the study guide, and it says that in the letter. In the letter, when you read it, when I read it in a minute, you'll see a dilemma between unmitigated monogamy and complete abstinence, and that Screwtape hates monogamous marriage between a man and a woman. They detest it. And he also thinks love is impossible when dealing with human lustful desires. I'll go into this more, but first let's stop and read the letter for today. That bird was amazing. Did you hear that? All right, this is letter 18. Welcome to the Screwtape Letters. Let's read. My dear Wormwood, even under slubgob, you must have learned at college the routine technique of sexual temptation. And since, for us spirits, this whole subject is one of considerable tedium, though necessary as part of our training, I will pass it over. But on the larger issues involved, I think you have a good deal to learn. The enemy's demand on humans takes the form of a dilemma, either complete abstinence or unmitigated monogamy. Ever since our Father's first great victory, we have rendered the former very difficult to them. The latter, for the last few centuries, we have been closing up as a way of escape. We have done this through the poets and novelists, by persuading the humans that a curious and usually short-lived experience, which they call being in love, is the only respectable ground for marriage, that marriage can, and ought to, render this excitement permanent, and that a marriage which does not do so is no longer binding. This idea is our parody of an idea that came from the enemy. The whole philosophy of hell rests on recognition of the axiom that one thing is not another thing, and especially that one self is not another self. My good is not my good, and your good is yours. What one gains, another loses. Even an inanimate object is what it is by excluding all other objects from the space it occupies. If it expands, it does so by thrusting other objects aside or by absorbing them. A self does the same. With beasts, the absorption takes the form of eating. For us, it means the sucking of will and freedom out of a weaker self into a stronger. To be means to be in competition. Now, the enemy's philosophy is nothing more nor less than one continued attempt to evade this very obvious truth. He aims at a contradiction. Things are to be many, yet somehow also one. The good of oneself is to be the good of another. This impossibility he calls love, and this same monotonous panacea can be detected under all he does and even all he is, or claims to be. Thus he is not content, even himself, to be a sheer arithmetical unity. He claims to be three as well as one, in order that this nonsense about love may find a foothold in his own nature. At the other end of the scale, he introduces into matter that obscene invention, the organism, in which the parts are perverted from their natural destiny of competition and made to cooperate. His real motive for fixing on sex as the method of reproduction among humans is only too apparent from the use he has made of it. Sex might have been, from our point of view, quite innocent. It might have been merely one more mode in which a stronger self preyed upon a weaker, as it is indeed among the spiders, where the bride concludes her nuptials by eating the groom. But in the humans, the enemy has gratuitously associated affection between the parties with sexual desire. He has also made the offspring dependent on the parents and given the parents an impulse to support it, thus producing the family, which is like the organism, only worse. For the members are more distinct, yet also united in a more conscious and responsible way. The whole thing, in fact, turns out to be simply one more device for dragging in love. Now comes the joke. The enemy described a married couple as one flesh. He did not say a happily married couple, or a couple who married because they were in love, but you can make the humans ignore that. You can also make them forget that the man they call Paul did not confine it to married couples. Mere copulation for him makes one flesh. You can thus get the humans to accept as rhetorical eulogies of being in love what were in fact plain descriptions of the real significance of sexual intercourse. The truth is that wherever a man lies with a woman, there, whether they like it or not, a transcendental relation is set up between them which must be eternally enjoyed or eternally endured. From the true statement that this transcendental relation was intended to produce, and if obediently entered into, too often will produce, affection and the family, humans can be made to infer the false belief that the blend of affection, fear, and desire which they call being in love is the only thing that makes marriage either happy or holy. The error is easy to produce because being in love does very often in Western Europe precede marriages which are made in obedience to the enemy's designs, that is, with the intention of fidelity, fertility, and goodwill, just as religious emotion very often, but not always, attends conversion. In other words, the humans are to be encouraged to regard as the basis for marriage a highly colored and distorted version of something the enemy really promises as its result. Two advantages follow. In the first place, humans who have not the gift of continence can be deterred from seeking marriage as a solution because they do not find themselves in love, and thanks to us, the idea of marrying with any other motive seems to them low and cynical. Yes, they think that. They regard the intention of loyalty to a partnership for mutual help, for the preservation of chastity, and for the transmission of life as something lower than a storm of emotion. Don't neglect to make your man think the marriage service very offensive. In the second place, any sexual infatuation whatever, so long as it intends marriage, will be regarded as love, and love will be held to excuse a man from all the guilt and to protect him from all the consequences of marrying a heathen, a fool, or a wonton. But more of this in my next. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. And that is letter 18. Wow, what a powerful letter, right? Letter 18. So Screwtape decides to attack sex, marriage, and the family. No surprise, right? It's also the last battle as prophesied by, I think it was Saint Lucia at Fatima. So yes, it should be absolutely no surprise to us that Satan would do this to us. You know, even Screwtape, this fictitious demon, Satan's doing it in real life. I mean, especially nowadays with what's going on in the world, we can clearly see that the family is what's being attacked. I mean, it's being attacked the most, and inside that attack comes, sex, marriage, what defines marriage, all those things that the church clearly speaks about in the catechism. Satan is continually trying, though, to distort all those things and break apart families. And I'll be the first to say, my family does not always act perfectly. I do not always act like the perfect dad or the perfect husband. I try, but I don't know that I'll ever attain that level, until the day I die. But I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my family, and I'll always pick myself back up when I do mess up or fail, and continue fighting for the consistency and all those things. So onto the dilemma between unmitigated monogamy and complete abstinence, as Screwtape calls it. With unmitigated monogamy being marriage, of course. Which one are we called to give ourselves to, though? God demands this from our sexuality to keep us holy, and of course the demons are going to try to attack this. They hate the giving of oneself. That's what marriage is. It's a giving of yourself. And I forget that way too often. But as a man, I picture something a bit more morbid in the way of marriage and giving of myself. I said this one time at a church that I was going to, and people kind of, I don't think anybody gasped, but the guys were like, what? Where are you going with this? But go with me on this. So you know how it says in Ephesians 5:22 about how the wife should submit. A lot of men like to stop there, and we crack jokes about it, but the future of that set of verses actually paints a much grimmer picture for the man. So let me ask you this. What color dress does a woman usually wear to her wedding? White, right? Yeah. And what color tux does a man usually wear to his wedding? Usually it's black. So why do you think this is? Black has always been associated with death. We know this. I believe we men, though, should wear our tuxes in black to our weddings, because if we truly obey those verses in Ephesians 5, truly obey them, how it says the wife should submit to the husband, but the husband should love the wife and give himself up for her like Christ gave himself up for the church, to love and cherish her. If we truly are going to do that, then we're not going to our wedding. We're going to our funeral. We are going to say, today I die to myself. I'm dead to me, at least we're supposed to be. And now I only live for you, to cherish you and nourish you. And I say that like waiting for a lightning bolt to hit me, because I don't always live up to this, and I want to. I sometimes get selfish, and I get prideful, and I live for me, and I need to live for her all the time. And so I'm sure a lot of you have seen the TV show The Office. I love that show. I think it's hilarious. But in the end, in season 9, Dwight and Angela finally get married. How do they get married? It's quite interesting. I know they didn't mean to do this for us, but they got married in their graves they're going to be buried in someday. I thought that was such a symbol for us Catholics. Confession time, though. I don't always live by this. I try. I fail miserably, and I end up arguing for my point of view, whining like a little baby because I didn't get my way. And when I finally come to my senses about how prideful I just was, it's too late, and I've hurt others around me. It's kind of like my wife always says, it's like a tube of toothpaste. It's like a tube of toothpaste. When you squeeze it out, you can't put it back in. It's the same thing. But these letters have been opening my eyes and making me more self-aware to what is trying to take my soul ultimately. So that's the attack that Screwtape launches here. He even alludes to Slubgob, the other demon, who must have been a teaching demon of some sort who taught sexual temptation, but there are larger issues at hand. They mention that at the beginning of the letter. So they attack abstinence by distorting it as too hard, too difficult to live by, if God is calling you to that. Or they distort monogamy by trying to get us to believe it isn't really built on that foundation, or to try to get us to believe that love is just a fleeting thing, being in love, making the one thing not another thing, making it based on feelings and not on a long-term commitment. I mean, everybody desires love, and God calls us to love by giving, because he gave himself for all the world's sin. And it's up to Screwtape and the demons to distort that love into something fleeting, right? The two greatest gifts we must realize is love of spouse and love of children. In the Catechism in 1643, it says, conjugal love involves a totality in which all the elements of the person enter. Appeal of the body and instinct, power of feeling and affectivity, aspiration of the spirit and of will. It's a total look at the other person ahead of ourselves. Man, that is way too difficult to do at times. I mean, pride is always trying to creep in, right? But we are called to be faithful to each other. We are not supposed to, for example, look at pornography. It's the number one waste, by the way. Satan gets a man to have issues in his marriage too. But if Satan can destroy a family, it destroys so many lives over two people. It resonates through everyone involved, directly and indirectly at times. So Marlin says that love is definitive, as in Catechism 1646. He goes on to say, the foundation of conjugal love is rooted in fidelity to God, to his covenant, and to his church. Fidelity rests on authentic conjugal love. The issue of either unmitigated monogamy or abstinence is not an impediment towards true love, as viewed by Screwtape. So in order to understand that, I would say just really meditate on 1 Thessalonians 4:3-8. It's a good Bible verse to meditate on. I'll be personally doing that more after doing this letter. It's been very eye-opening today. So going on, Screwtape is basically trying to keep people falling in love and never solidifying that love, because then they will discover the true fruits of what that love can bring when realized and formed between a man and a woman in marriage. So he tries to get Screwtape to keep, pushing falling in love and not a solidifying love. The aim of our sexuality is to take us to a place of cooperation and love. Screwtape, the demons, their aim is to take and to be in competition with each other for to gain what another loses by absorbing, as it says in letter 18, absorbing objects thrust aside, meaning destroying things and others by gaining in themselves. So lastly, they attack sexual intercourse. The sexual union for animals, as we know, is about reproduction, and that's it. For us, it's about having babies, but it's also about love and friendship and relationship building with our spouse. It's about affection. As one priest put it, it's a communion of love that brings about the basis of the family. There is order in the family, and Screwtape wants disorder to bring the patient or that man to hell, to bring all of us to hell. They try to distort the one flesh union by, getting them to overlook the real significance of the one flesh union. They know something amazing happens that God says is a mystery when a man and a woman have intercourse, and they want them to do it a lot thinking they are in love, but get it to be sort of fleeting, so they become confused and they start to question what true fidelity or they start to question three things: what true fidelity, fertility, and goodwill is. Because if they discover that, it can bring us to conversion of heart, and they obviously don't want that. Screwtape has two final advantages of distorting marriage. The first one is that if they can keep us believing that being in love, that basis for marriage is if they get it highly colored and distorted, they will see it as low and cynical, writing it off because they don't have continence, which is the ability to have self-restraint with regard to sex. So you get them so wrapped up in things like pornography that you think they will never be in a place where they could get married. That's a very dark place to be. The second one is that any sexual infatuation, so long as it intends marriage, will be regarded as love, and that love can lead the man to excuse in his own mind himself from all the guilt and protection for marrying a heathen, a fool, or a wanton. So the goal of sex is to make a family, bottom line. That's the result of sex, at least it's supposed to be. And the demons here are trying to make it about something else so they can bring frustration and demise to our lives. The goal of Screwtape throughout this letter is to cause a disassociation from the truth of what God wants for a marriage, for sex, and for a family. So they try to make it about being in love. If they can do that, then when the patient's marriage and everyone else's goes through the normal undulations of life, those ups and downs that all marriages have, and you don't necessarily feel in love with your spouse, you'll get disappointed, and it'll cause things to shake apart because now it's not founded on that concrete foundation given by God. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed that amazing sunset happening as I was talking. This letter was very difficult for me to complete spiritually. I set out this Lent to bring you something a bit raw and organic each day, instead of doing it all ahead of time and having it all perfectly planned. And it's just sometimes spiritually and personally difficult for me to do. So I apologize for the lateness in getting this out today. I'm also continually having space and storage problems, like daily. So please pray for me, and please know that I am praying for all of you, and I'm trying hard to get these out. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can comment under these videos or email me at jaygoodman.deepadventure@gmail.com, jaygoodman.deepadventure@gmail.com. Please like and subscribe. I know you hear it all the time in videos, but I really, really would appreciate it. Like and subscribe and a comment of some sort on all my videos as you read them. I'd like to know what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. I really would appreciate that. And I love messages. I love to hear, they've lately been very uplifting and encouraging, so thank you for that. If you feel in your heart to give to my ministry here, my Venmo is at JAYGoodman75. Also, check out bearschoolofmanliness.com. It has awesome content, and if you'd like a personal touch to it, I can help you sign up and take you on a tour of it through Zoom. Just contact me and I'll set all that up for you. Thank you. I'll see you all tomorrow for letter 19. Mary, pray for us. St. Michael, protect us.